I remember that meeting with Mike Nixon, who was the bloke in charge of the West End Food Bank, and he just boggled our minds. And part of the fundamental thing about being a football fan is that you're very proud of your city, your people, your community, your team. It's so much more than the 11 men on the pitch. It's everybody in the stands. It's like Colin says, he's been going for years. I've been going because my dad took me when I was 4 years old. You go, your kids up, well, they're probably downstairs ready to try not to go to bed soon, mind you. But, when you got kids who are like a couple of years older just than your two toddlers going to their first match, and like Bobby Robson says, you go in there, you see the grass under the lights, and without being able to do a thing about it, you fall in love. And it's a very powerful thing. And it encapsulates the community that we're all part of, and our city and the identity of that city. And when on one hand you're so proud of something and what it can mean for everybody, and the positivity and friendship, and comradeship and decency that it can bring, to then find out that the biggest food bank in Britain is half a mile away from it, and there are children starving. Now, one of the reasons you go to football, as you'll know, is you get away from things. You get away from the ordinary humdrum of your life where you've got to come home, you got a flat tire on the car, you got a leak in the roof, you got to put a Christmas tree up, and you got to find last year's, there's all that sort of stuff. One of the light systems, it doesn't work. There's all that kind of thing goes on. And you go to football because you can escape from it. And I think that's really good for people. It's good for their mental health. We never really started talking about things like mindfulness. Do you remember, I think it was about 10 years when people started having colouring in books, and that was the first thing. They don't do that anymore. But they discovered that football was a real fundamental part of a community's kind of self-care. And we decided that we couldn't really go to a match and pretend not to worry about these things when we knew how bad and atrocious it was, where people are literally starving and children are starving. And we knew, I think none of us comes from any kind of wealthy backgrounds particularly, but none of us ever had to deal with that kind of hunger. And we just thought that for the sake of everything that we believe in, everything that we hold dear as a community in a city, that we had to at least try and do something. And Colin's dead right about doing things. We've seen it before. You see a group of people who look each other in the eye and just nod their heads, like you're nodding your head now. And you say, right, we're going to do something about this. And you don't need much talent, thankfully, because we didn't really have any. You don't need much experience. You just need the ability to carry on going. And we started off seriously thinking, well, we'll just collect tins of beans or something. And then we really didn't think about it after that. We thought, well, we'll probably go and find some poor people to give it to. But Mike Nixon, he's the one that, with the backing of the charity, the West End Food Bank, the Bede Food Bank, and the infrastructure they'd had, was able to put us in a position where we were able to do what we were good at, which was, if you like, shaking the tree, telling the people that this is going on. And Colin will tell you, Steve will tell you, Stuart will tell you, everybody involved in the food bank will tell you that the fans of this club, the people of this city, if you ask them for help, you'll get it. One of the fundamental things about Newcastle through the ages has always been unity against adversity, wherever that adversity came from. That, if you're in trouble, you call for help, you will get that help. We knew the reaction of the people was going to be positive. If you told us that, 7 years later, the food bank collections would be getting even bigger, that there'd be more people coming to help, there'd be people donating like hundreds of advent calendars and selection boxes, so that no kid at the food bank would go without one of those things. And that's the fundamental. We want every single kid to be able to have their breakfast, open up a door on the advent calendar, get some chocolate, and be just the same as everybody else, and the knowledge they'll get their dinner, then they'll go home and have their tea with their families. And that means they can stick in at school, and they can learn, and they can be an engineer, or they can learn coding, or coding's out of fashion now, isn't it? But they can be technologists, they can be artists, they can join in society. And when you have that, you have a good society. But you can't have kids learning things if they're hungry. And when you have parents who are in a situation where, even though they're going to work, even though they're paying the rent, keeping a car on the road, or paying for the phone, they can't feed their kids. It must be utterly and absolutely soul destroying. We think the only thing we could do was to get the most famous thing in this region, the biggest thing in this region by far, the thing that occupies more column inches, and the thing we knew best because we were part of it, to do something about that situation, so that those kids now and in the future would know that people cared, and that allowed them to go on with a bit of hope in society. Because you think the alternative, I think so many things in life, you make a decision about, do you do something because of the positive reasons, or do you not do something and then think, what would be the negative consequences of doing that? It's like every day, I suppose, I probably look and think, oh, I should tidy my side of the bedroom and pick up some clothes, and then think, whatever. This wasn't like that. This was one of those things where we thought we absolutely have to do something about this, because if we don't, those kids in the future will turn back in 10 years' time and say, when we needed something, nobody helped us.